Hello, everybody.
What a
Hi. I am wretched, so I'm not going to be on cam today because it's Valentine's weekend. I'm single. I didn't go out. I didn't shave. I'm not putting on makeup. Fuck that shit.
just it's me
Uh,
holding down the fort, guys. You get to look at this beautiful face. I too I'm all unkempt. I need a haircut
well,
in
yeah, but
like
other
the
times
worst way.
unshaven looks good on guys. Unshaved on a trans woman just looks weird.
That's
No
fair.
offense to other trans women who are unshaved. I just get personal.
It's yeah, I know, I get it. It's a personal preference, some I used to be, it's so funny. I used to be so weird about what I wore wearing the house, right? And I don't even think this was like a trans identity related thing. I think it was just a me thing. It was like, if you're leaving the house, you wear jeans. You don't wear sweatpants leaving the house, like you're wearing jeans or like basically non sweatpants. And that was like
hmm
me for the longest time until I got to college and then like a little bit after that and I was like, yeah, you could wear sweatpants when you leave the house. That's fucking fine. Like, who cares? um Anywho, topic for today. Sophia, did you want to introduce our topic for today, or did we want to do
Uh,
like life updates first? If there's anything particularly worth pointing out.
think my life updates are more relevant actually to like the topic because we
Mm,
were talking about let me just double check this to make sure that I say the right thing because if I say the wrong thing after I wrote it out, I look really stupid. Um, it's Lupercalia today, and I had suggested that we talk about the divine concepts of masculine and feminine and as they relate to occultism and the personal archetypes that we embody.
that's a big one. We're doing like college level discussion topics here today. Um, it's a really good topic to explore, especially at this time of year, because you're getting into that like the spring is emerging and there's a lot of fertility talk right now. I guess in the
Which
pagan sphere. But Scott.
it's always no, it's always so funny. Knowing a little bit more about this time of year as well. How Lupercalia is part of the Parentalia in the Roman tradition, and the Parentalia was actually a time for honoring the lares or the house gods, the ancestors,
Mm,
and the manes who were just like the dead in general, right? And
right.
then Lupercalia falls within that as sort of this time of revelry to sort of break up this sort of either break it up or end it. I forget. No, it's in the middle. Um, uh, yeah, because the Parentalia is a 9-day festival,
Mm,
and it started on the 13th.
okay.
Um, Yeah, and Lupercalia falls within the middle of it to sort of break up the sort of deathy and the sort of spooky sort of almost energy of the Parentalia. Um, so I always also find that really fascinating that it this holiday of sexuality and sensuality and primordial nature, right? Lupercalia was all about sort of letting loose and letting go. It was very it was almost you might consider it bacchanalian. You know what I mean? In
Mm,
in if although I don't think it was specifically for Bacchus or Pater, who's the Roman an ancient Roman sort of god of the vine, but it was still very bacchanalian in nature as a festival, you know what I mean?
mm.
Um, and I always found that really fascinating, the contrasting sort of the spooky and reverent and solemnness of the Parentalia in general, and then here is Lupercalia, um, a festival embracing, you know, our most primordial nature.
Basically like the opposite of, it's like death versus life, if you're looking at
Well,
like the terms of
it's
the spectrum.
exactly. Yep, and that's exactly what I was getting to. The ancient world saw death and sex as like the mirror. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
death and sex were,
le petit mort.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, they were it
Le
was,
petit mort is French for the little death, and that's what
yep.
the phrase that they would use for an orgasm is.
Hmm. And yeah, much of the ancient world saw uh sex and death as related. They were together, you know,
Mm.
which I always find fascinating. Oof.
It almost
But
feels like Pride should be now versus in June when it usually is, you know?
But it's cold now, and how are we gonna dress like hoes in the cold? No, no. I want Pride in July because I get my skimpiest, most hanging out mini skirts, and ain't nobody gonna have to say, "Are you fucking cold?" Yeah, I'm fucking cold. Of course I'm cold. I'm wearing a mini skirt and -20. What's wrong with you?
Of course I'm cold, but I look great.
Right.
And hoes are never cold because we're not allowed to admit we're cold.
Right. Part of the code, you know? It's
It
the
is.
Yeah,
It
unwritten
is.
the
contract that
cold
we all
code.
sign.
But
The cold code.
I g- to to get into the point of today, right?
Mm,
About how the divine masculine and the divine feminine as it relates to our personal experience.
mm. I think it's
I
cool because we can draw on it no matter what our gender expression is, right? So it's like I am a man, and yet I have a nurturing part of me that we usually associate with the divine feminine, and it's not a bad thing to associate nurturing with femininity. You know what I mean? It's not inherently a bad thing. It's like you have to draw
I
it from
also totally
somewhere.
disagree though with like the whole uh femininity is considered nurturing thing because like I don't know um if y'all have met like emotionally healed men, you know, who
Mm,
like can raise their kids and be connected. I have met dads who are so fucking nurturing that they blow certain mothers out of the water. I think what it really comes
mm,
down to is that we've created a culture as a society where we create excuses for like straight cis men who are detached, who just want a family for like the status that it provides and like the creature comforts, but not actually for like the lived reality of caring for somebody and being a protector, right? And
mm,
like you can always tell when somebody genuinely gives a fuck about their kids and their family because they would like do almost anything, right? And you listen to stories about people who had that, and I'll laugh and be like, imagine your family like up and moving and changing their whole fucking life because you wanted to do something as a kid, right? Laughable to a lot. But
oh yeah, yeah.
it is a thing, right? It's just a societal conditioning because men have every single nurturing and protection instinct that women have. I think it's just a fucking incorrect falsehood that we perpetuate. Mic drop.
Yeah, and it's to say also that femininity at the same time, when I think about it, I don't always think of nurturing. I can also think of like
No.
wrath, you know what I mean? Like that feminine rage. And so I think what's really cool is that feminine masculine is not just the two sides of the coin. There are two sides of the coin within the divine feminine and two sides of the divine masculine. So it's like they themselves have two alternating sides to them, kind of
Yes.
thing, in addition to them
Yeah.
being different forces.
This is why I've always really liked, again, much of the ancient world, and I think nothing so much helps us sort of sets an example of all of this as the ancient world and how we treated like sun and moon gods.
Mm-hmm.
And how a lot of the ancient world, what we don't really pay attention to, especially in Western neo paganism, is that much of the ancient world had like two faces. Often for those things. So like there was a moon god and a moon goddess and a sun god and a sun goddess, right? Um it wasn't sort of just like, well, the sun is gods and the moon is goddesses. It didn't work that way.
Mm-hmm.
And we've kind of, I don't know. See, it's weird for me. Addressing masculinity and femininity is always very weird for me because I never really understood it
Hmm.
in context of, like the whole thing about nurturing, right?
Hmm.
Um it always just everything always just feels like a lot of the time when I think about those things, they feel arbitrary to me. Um but uh I can sort of see, but like you were saying, Jay, about how each of those carries, two faces, right? It's sort of
Hmm.
they're concepts, archetypes. They're sort of a current, right?
Hmm.
That we all have to embody simultaneously. And I think that when I talk about weirdly enough, I experienced this with like crystal magic as somebody who doesn't do a lot of work with crystals and stones, but I do find that stones, for whatever reason, I find it's easier to kind of see it this way for whatever reason. But and certain herbs like lavender, I always say has a nurturing kind of protection, right?
Oh, I
Hmm.
It's
fucking love lavender.
softer. It's a softer form of motherly protection, right?
Hmm.
It's not as aggressive as
Cinnamon.
blackthorn, right?
I had to go with
Um,
the super
Yeah, I
aggressive
was like,
one right off the jump. Cinnamon.
but but it's funny because I hope I'm getting to what I'm trying to say. This is a very broad and very nuanced topic, and I want to try to do it justice, but um again, you have to understand from somebody who doesn't really acknowledge a gender at all,
hmm.
and came to realize later on in life that like I didn't even really know that until like I've said I tell my therapist all the time. It's honestly thanks to you two that I started to
Oh.
realize that that was different. Um I really didn't know that that was like it was different. It wasn't the norm. Not that it's not normal, but it like people, most people engage their gender in a very active way, right? It's something that you can think about and you can contemplate and those things, right? I never did that.
Hmm.
Growing up all throughout my life, I never had that. So when I was listening to both of you talk, I was like, "Oh, holy shit, there's something here." You know what I mean? Something isn't the same. You know what I mean as other people. So it's funny because like I can experience um the supernal in terms of like divine masculine, divine feminine. I know what I'm talking about to feel it, to sense it, but my question then becomes sort of what Sophia was bringing up about where do those qualities, what quantifies it, right?
Hmm.
Like what exactly am I looking for? Sometimes it feels like softness, but I've also felt softness from more masculine feeling energies, right? Um, is it the way in which they what is that present, like is it the way in which they execute their that that energy sort of plays out, is that where it goes?
That's what I'm
So I can
thinking.
acknowledge.
I
Hmm.
think it's like a soft masculine energy will feel different from a soft feminine energy. Right? Like you can
Absolutely.
yeah, like you can kind of tell the source from which it's coming from. It's still soft, but it's different. And I think
Mhm.
that's what we're trying to get into is how do you even fucking describe the difference
Okay,
between
I can actually jump into this for a second. It comes down to a feeling, and I know that sounds really stupid, but let me explain. What's the difference between a femboy and a trans girl?
uh
well,
well,
femboy like
so
you still identify
one
as a boy.
identifies as a boy,
Yeah.
Go on.
um and a trans girl is a woman.
And your identity
um
comes from what? How you feel about yourself, right?
Right.
right.
Yeah.
Hmm.
All of it's feeling, right? So whether or
Yeah.
not you're masculine or feminine, it is actually a personal relationship with your identity and how you express yourself more than it is anything
Mm.
external. That's
Mm.
why you
Yeah.
can be a fucking guy, like straight up gay cis man wearing makeup and be very feminine, but still be a dude. And you can absolutely be a fucking butch woman, right?
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
I think
Right.
it just really comes down to how you see yourself and how you want others to see.
I think it's so
Because I
interesting to have this conversation in this very queer centric space because we're all like, yeah, who gives a fuck, about gender? Like who really
but
fucking cares?
yeah, but I see it. You know what I mean? Like, and
Mm,
I tell people all the time because I've had people ask me, especially like newer people to like the occult and paganism and stuff, like, where does this fit in? Right? Like, um, I had a cis gay friend of mine ask me that specifically,
mm,
and they were like, where does the whole divine masculine, divine mother, divine father thing fit? Right?
mm,
And I'm actually really happy because I said, look, I said I don't really at the time I really didn't have a good answer, but my answer was very close to what Sophia just said. I was like, it's about feeling, it's
Mhm.
about how it metabolizes and sits in, when the gods and the spirits come down, and they're with you. How does that feel? um do like, for me, I've always felt that, like, the spirit of the chili pepper, like the plant itself, when I'm working with it, it's a very hot spirit. It's very spicy and very hot, but for
Mhm.
me, it's very aggressive. And for whatever reason, that translates as more masculine, right? It's not
But
to say that it
also,
doesn't have. Hmm?
sorry, go ahead. You were going to addendum what I was probably going to say.
Oh, it's not, but it's also not to say that it doesn't have more feminine qualities, because another thing that I sometimes like to use it for when I need it is it really revs up things.
mm,
Hmm.
It's still an aggression, but it will rev up other spells. It can be used in other ways, right? It's not just in attack magic. It could be used to really, really spice up. I mean, you don't want to use a lot of it, but you could put like a
Hmm.
tiny little pinch of red pepper flakes um, in a love spell or some type of
mm,
relationship spell if it's gone a little stale, or maybe whatever. Maybe you want to coax a partner to get into kink or something, and they feel a little hesitant, but you want to help ease them in, right? Like, you could add that for me, it feels more of its feminine quality, right? This is why I love working with the witch's devil, the divine androgyne. I think a lot of that um, has taught me how this works, for me, and to look at everything as if, like, everything that we work with is queer. That's kind of how I take it. I know that
it is.
probably, you know, um, I know that there are some practitioners out there who I've gotten yelled at by, cough, cough, Dianic Wiccans. I love you, but like, still
Oh
get a
my
hold of
God,
yourself.
Dianic Wiccans and
I
fucking
love y'all to
like,
pieces. I love y'all to pieces, but yeah. I know y'all get a little frustrated about the gender stuff, but it's particularly when queer people talk about it. But
But we're living it.
um,
So,
yeah. Although there are queer Dianic Wiccans, but
yeah,
they
yeah.
they know what I'm talking about. You know what
Mm.
I'm saying? I don't have to I don't want to, like, sit here and bash on them. It's just, and it's not all of them. It is not all of them. So I'm not saying that either. But I've gotten into a lot of fights about it. But I find that these are qualities that every magician, whether queer or cishet or cis or trans or whatever, these are qualities that we all should be embodying. Um, it's just like when we talk about there's like a really popular question about like the elements, right? Like, oh, what's your element? And we talk about the archetypal and psycho-spiritual qualities of each element, right? And but in the end, you like part of the mystic's journey, the witch's journey, the occultist journey is to be able to embody the qualities of all of those elements. We should be able to move through even the ones that we have the hardest time with, almost especially the ones you have the hardest time with, right? Like for the longest time for me, not to change the subject, but I'm kind of not. Like people also often frequently in a lot of neo-pagan circles view fire as very masculine, right? Because
Mhm.
it burns down things and whatever. But the way that I got through settling with those archetypes of fire, and when I work with fire, the elemental spirit of fire, it was through a more gentle approach, right? I can't because of what I've been through, it was harder for me to go through that archetype of fire as like, the destroyer. You know what I mean? To for things to, come back from fire. I had to go through like fire warms you in the cold, and then I had to kind of go bigger, right?
Yeah, because you
Hmm.
had
The
to
more
embrace the good qualities of fire, like the things, like
right.
the good parts of it, the safe parts of it, I
Mhm.
guess.
The safer parts,
Yeah.
sure, sure. And that for me it was it's more softer or quote unquote feminine, whatever qualities for me,
Mm.
right? Um, because at the same time I was always aware that, a candle could catch fire. Do you know how many times I've almost burned my house down when I was younger getting into witchcraft? Don't tell my mother. Um
I don't
Things
know
we don't
why.
tell
Okay,
mom.
hold up. I literally don't know why I have never had that issue with fire. Fire and me are like fucking down bad. I don't. It doesn't like burn me. It doesn't light my shit on fire accidentally. I don't know what the fuck we got going on, but it's like we got some ride or die shit.
That's good. It's a good
it's,
relationship to have.
it really is. But it's funny because what you call it, I rarely get poked by thorned bushes and things. Like I can generally like sift through thorny brambles and stuff and like not get hurt. Very rarely if I talk to it or whatever, if I'm like really calm, I don't get hurt by, earth tends to not hurt me like that, right? So I get it, and it's funny because I was one time reading a book about uh what is it? I forget which book it was. Was it The Flying Witches of Veracruz? I forget. But they were discussing relationships with plant spirits and how they will treat you better if you earnestly work with them and really try to keep them alive and stuff like that.
Mm.
And they seem to be less interested in biting you. But yeah, no, I get it. I totally get it. But yeah, I think working with the witch's devil has really taught me about the divine feminine, divine masculine as qualities that we should embody, um, each and every one of us. I'll never forget a friend of mine from Harry's Occult Shop years ago. He really enjoyed. He was a straight man. Um, had only girlfriends. He was cisgendered. Um, but he really, really enjoyed cross dressing. He loved, I guess, drag, I guess.
Mm.
And it was something that meant a lot to him. He said he always found it really empowering. He was old school punk, he loved like all things punk, but yeah, he's always really enjoyed cross dressing, as he called it. And I want to, speak from his experience. And he said it really helped him with his occultism,
Mm.
I actually know a
addressing.
guy like that too, who doesn't necessarily cross dress, but embodies the feminine aspect in himself in like increase his efficacy with witchcraft.
Hmm. Yeah, it's a really common thing common in our circle, in occult circles, um, to do this, to not manipulate, but to sort of play with these qualities that are in each of us in measure. It's just about us acknowledging them and being able to uh, form relationships, if you will, with these archetypal powers, And I don't think they're all very easy, right? Like certain qualities are more difficult to handle than others for our from because of our experiences, right? Our life experiences make
Mm-hmm.
certain things a bit harder, but you have to go through those challenges in order to sort of be, I don't know, you want to call it worthy, you want to call it capable of actually being able to work with these energies, whatever, you know? It's like an initiation, you know?
Mm-hmm. Did my did my internet just cut out?
No, you're good.
No,
You're
I
good.
can hear
I
you.
think we're all just taking a
Okay.
moment to just
Just
absorb.
I never know. My internet's been real shit the past 2 days. Yeah, it's interesting, honestly. Like, remember how we were saying, do we want to do like personal updates and stuff? Like,
Hmm.
I recently bought, don't laugh, massive fucking titties, like drag queen style titties,
Nice.
just so
Hey.
just so I can practice for when I get my implant.
Hmm. Yeah,
So I'm
you
sitting over
realize
here in like literally
you have
H
a
cup
lot more
titties,
to
like
deal with in the front. That was one of the things on the
uh
reverse end for top surgery. I was like, there's so much more like space here.
yeah, you can
Like I
get
wasn't like,
close to stuff. I'm like
yeah,
knocking shit off my fucking desk when I go to have a bong toke. Like I'm
yeah,
wearing them right now, which is part of why I'm not on camera. And it's hella inconvenient because they're about 4 to 5 inches protruding off my chest to just like fucking systematically knock everything over in the environment, right?
yep.
But this is also the thing about energies, right? With like masculine and feminine, they're inversions of the same energy. So one doesn't necessarily have to oscillate at that frequency constantly, right? Gender
Mm,
fluid people really show us this. Like, I got a friend who I think is cis, but the friend has not hooked up with anybody ever in like his entire life and is like 32 and recently just bought a massive pair of drag queen titties for the lulls air
mm,
quotation.
uh-huh.
Even if this person turns out to be air quotations straight, I'm going to be real with you. I don't think the word straight is actually even relatively useful anymore because
Yeah.
you go to Reddit and look up the straight to gay. Okay. Like specifically just keeping it in that. How many guys in there will be fucking a guy in the ass or getting fucked in the ass and making out with them and then be like, no, but I'm straight. It's like, my brother in Christ, you are literally guzzling this guy's cum and fucking dressing up like a girl. Like, it's fine to accept that we are on a spectrum of queerness, right? I think the real fucking problem comes on how much we try to hold ourselves archetypes that don't necessarily fucking fit to us. And to take a page from what Scott has said on earlier episodes, I feel like the thing that most men are struggling with is the fact that they're fucking bisexual and society just doesn't really give them an avenue to express it.
Yep. Yeah, it like this is see this is why I love Christopher Penzak's Temple of Witchcraft. They do a lot, as you know, they do a lot of advocacy, they do a lot of protesting. They're very involved in what is that called? Activism. And one of their signs that I really like that they use is all the gods are queer.
Mm,
Mm-hmm.
And as an animist, I see the gods as sort of an extension of nature itself. So, you know, because all of nature is queer, right? There's no part of nature um that is on a strict binaries of any kind, right? I think that yeah, I think that when we can embrace, and I say we, I mean all of us collectively. I don't want to just, you know, shit on cis-hets right now, 'cause I'm in like a peace mood, but
I'm in a mood for peace.
it's just, well, it's a good thing for me because my
Your queer rage has been.
the queer rage, it needs to come down. I mean, it has actually. I've calmed down a little bit. Weirdly enough, with everything going on, I've calmed down. But
Low key think queer rage is just a survival response that's actually extremely unhelpful.
yeah, a hundred
I've
percent.
I've dead ass. I have made so many allies out of responding to somebody who said something extremely ignorant with patience and understanding rather than vilification. And it turns out when you can get past your own emotional reaction about how something makes you feel, you realize that not everybody's coming at you in bad faith, and you're gonna win a lot more flies with honey than with vinegar. It's like the black guy who literally went and de-radicalized KKK people by meeting them, right?
Right.
I
Yeah.
know tons of fucking people who were formerly transphobes, who had really shitty opinions on trans people, said disgusting things to my face, who were not actually bad people, but were just misinformed, who I was able to change the minds of because I didn't attack them and I didn't try to make them feel a type of way because I felt the type of way. And that's what it comes down to, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
absolutely. I that's actually something it helped me with my queer rage recently and coming down and feeling good. Um, forget where I was. I'm so sorry. I was about to say something. Oh, um, I really think that we would be better off collectively if more people had an opportunity to uh explore um their own queerness, explore their
Mm-hmm.
own uh sense of self. Honestly, they you know, a lot of these people they have no identity. See, that's the one thing about queer people, about, you know, all of us under the, you know, LGBTQIA2S plus spectrum, is that we kind of, there is an inherentness, inherited sort of authenticity. We have no choice. Authenticity is sort of compulsory, because there is no playbook for us. There's nothing sort of written out. You know what I mean? We have to
Make it up
figure
as we
out what it
go.
means to be us, completely off script, right?
Yeah.
And not that we should want that script, because that script hurts them, but
Right. Yeah.
it, you know, it does put them in a situation where it seems like they're more put together, or, you know, whatever. But the fact is that we're really all in the same boat. You know what I mean? We're all just trying. But I think that I do still think that a lot of the reason why we're attacked underneath it all is sort of this authenticity, this sort of freedom that they're not afforded by their their this sort of this cis heteronormative philosophy, right? It doesn't serve them, and it certainly doesn't serve us.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think that they're trapped inside of these horrible bubbles. Um, and I think that they're tortured. Honestly, I look at them, and, you know, like, I'll never forget. You know, not that I want to be too graphic here, but I had a hookup with a gentleman who was not out at all.
Mm.
And I remember he was almost sort of in awe of me, because the three times that we hung out, you know, part of me and Darian's thing is like, you know, when you get to the guy's house, please call me. You know what I mean? Like, I want to hear your voice, I want to know you're okay. And then when you're leaving, call me again. Just to make sure you're safe, right? And he was in awe of seeing me and Darian like talking to each other while, you know, I love you, babe. You know, I'm gonna, you know, he's like, Darian is like, have fun, you know,
Mm.
and whatever. And he was like, we don't get to do that. That's what he said. I hung up, and he's like, we don't get to do that. He was like, because he goes, he's like, this is real, like, for you. He's like, because he was so shocked that, like, that me and Darian could trust one another so much
Mm.
to to have other relationships, if you will, outside of our
Mm-hmm.
relationship. And he was like, you and him are so close. He said, he was like, this would end our relationships. He's like, straight, and he like stops, and he goes, straight people. And he like finished the sentence, you know what I mean?
Mm.
And he was like, we don't get to do that with our relationships. And he was like, we're yeah, basically what he got to was like, they have to play a part.
Mm.
It's a role that they play. And I'm like, yeah, we don't have to do that. it just doesn't work that way for us. And you could tell that he had this like longing, this sort of sorrow that I honestly, and it was weird for me because I like to think of myself as deeply empathetic, and I am,
Mm.
but it was something that I couldn't understand. It was foreign to me. And I was like, oh wow. Like you guys are having an entire experience that and I mean like all of us
Weird.
queer and trans
Yeah.
people can't comprehend. Not I mean those of us who rode that out for a while maybe.
Yeah.
But for someone like me who, I came out sophomore summer. I
Yeah.
was
It
young,
was early for
you
me.
know.
Yeah, I was pretty young too at 25 when I came out as trans, and I was like kind of closeted bi before that, but like socially out as bi. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Right, right. Yeah, I totally know. Yeah. So like it was, for many of us, who come out younger, um we can't conceptualize what they're going through. Um they're in pain, like real
Oh
psychic.
yeah, like fucking
And
agony.
it's weird because like, that's another reason why I think I've calmed down a little bit is I've been thinking about
Mm.
this a lot. Um I've been thinking about how, you know, we're not the only ones in pain, right? Every time looking at them taking the flag down at Stonewall, right? I wanted to scream. I wanted to yell. I wanted to burn things and throw Molotov cocktails and the whole thing, right? I was furious. But I don't know what it was inside of it. And I can't even really pinpoint what it was. It was just this moment of stillness occurred. And it
Calm.
wasn't a numbness, it was a stillness. It was like a moment of clarity where I was like, they're afraid. They're really, really scared. And then this former MAGA, he's since now, leftist. Now he's leftist and everything. He changed, but I saw a video about him on the same day actually that probably really helped, where he was talking about their thought process. They want to they're it's like a, what is that thing where you want to stay with your capturer when you're kidnapped? Is that
Uh,
Stockholm?
Stockholm syndrome.
Is that Stockholm? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's like a Stockholm syndrome. They cling to the prison because, and the prison probably, it's not even like actually real, right? It's just it's like the dog salivating, you know what I
Mm.
mean? It's like it's just like they think that they're being rewarded in this, fake prison. They're like, well, the walls are there, you just can't see them. But if they were to actually try, they would realize the walls aren't actually there. You know what I'm getting at here?
Oh yeah.
Hmm.
Um, but they cling to it because it's all they know. And if they were to adopt queerness as a philosophy, and again, even for those truly cisgendered heterosexual people, queerness as an idea, as a sort of a philosophy, if you will, whatever, um, it will liberate all of us. You know what I mean? It will
Hmm.
set us free if you just embraced it and you stopped. So sorry, that was an accident. Um, if and if you stop, if you just embrace it and you stop fearing it, it would liberate us all. Um,
Hmm.
but they're really afraid. They're
I
really
have such
scared.
a rant on this too. If I may. So we actually really don't know ourselves that well as a people. And when I say that, I mean like literally fucking everybody, myself included, right? Like here's a really, really hot example. When I came out as trans, I thought I was really going to jive with like being a goth early. You know what I mean? And for a while I did, but I did that because it felt safe, right? And if I'd only prioritized my safety, I would have never like tried anything else or experienced anything else, and I wouldn't have found out that I actually prefer being a blonde. In fact, when I started coming out as trans, I used to look at blonde people and think, "Look at that! You have every color of the rainbow you could pick for your hair, and you chose the most basic one. And then I tried on the blonde wig, and it absolutely broke my conception of how I saw myself. Suddenly, I wanted to constantly be in a blonde wig. Suddenly, I liked how people treated me. And I got this like anxious attachment over being a blonde and like obsessing about it, but feeling like I couldn't. And because like people had these conceptions about me as a person. And that's the key core of like coming out and all of this shit, right? It's about the fact that often we want to do something and it makes us feel a type of way, right? Again, my hot take about this whole episode is everything comes back to feelings, right? So like if I didn't explore being a blonde, I would not be a blonde and like want to continually be a blonde for the rest of my fucking life, right?
Yeah, if you hadn't
Did you
tried
guys
it, you
lose me?
wouldn't. No, it's like if you hadn't tried it, you wouldn't
Okay.
know.
Exactly. And it's the same thing with being queer, right? People right now, oh, there we go. My Discord's working again. There are people right now all across the planet who would be like actually just straight up gay if they didn't have this like gigantic societal wide reservation about it and they were allowed to experience it just as an abstract concept, right? It's like what I've heard cis people say. Experimenting with your gender won't make you cis. It'll just make you know that you're cis. You basically unlock cis plus, which means like you're cis and you're comfortable with it and you don't feel the need to like deride other people about their positions and experiences because you've kind of like gone through that and worked through it yourself and you're like confident in it.
It's
Yes.
so fucking
Like
true. Like,
literally.
if you're a dude and you toss on a dress and you're like, wow, I don't like this. I feel like I'm out of my body. I
That
feel
guy is more
not
straight
good.
than the guy who never tried it. Yes.
Exactly. Now, not to say that if you like the dress, that means you're gay, it means you're trans. No, it doesn't mean any of that. You could just be a man that
It
likes to
means
wear
you
a
like
damn
the fucking
dress.
dress.
Yeah, it means you like the dress.
Right,
It's
exactly.
it's baby steps from that point on. You really got to start, and that's what we talk about exploring gender, right? So like that's your exploration
Mhm.
phase. It's like I explored. I put on the dress. I didn't like the dress. Great, you're cis. Congratulations. Or maybe you prefer skirts. I don't know. Like,
Or hell, you could wear a dress and like a dress and still be cis, right?
yeah,
Like you can
yeah.
like a different type of clothing style and have it not mean anything about your gender. Look at like all the drag queens who are like straight up gay guys, right?
And the
Like
more
it comes
people
down.
that live their truth, that wear the skirt, wear the dress, put the makeup
Mhm,
on, whether you are gay, straight, whatever you're fucking, like, it doesn't matter what your identity is, okay? It's just a matter of, like, I want to wear makeup. I want to do this.
mhm,
I want to wear this. Do it because, and if anything, queer people have kind of forged the way for that. We've set the way.
100%.
Just do it. Like, you can. It's fine. And there's plenty of people that are going to catch you if you stumble. You know what I mean? Like, we're here. Like, we see you. We see you embracing your true self, and most queer
Mhm.
people are gonna. We can kind of clock those things. We can kind of clock when someone's exploring their gender. We can kind of clock when someone's comfortable in their gender
Or when
expression.
someone's a fucking egg and they can't even admit to themselves that they're not comfortable with their
Yes.
gender because they haven't had sex or intimate relations with anybody by the age of fucking 35, and they display all of the signs that you can recognize as a trans woman. But God help you if you try and tell that person that they're trans, they will push harder into thinking that they're cis, literally as they're buying fake boobs and trying them on, right?
Yes.
It all comes down to the one simple fucking rule of all of this. You got to be comfortable in your own body. If
Yeah.
you're not comfortable in your own body, you are doing it wrong. Okay? Your body is not for anybody else unless you want your body to be for somebody else, right? 'Cause that's even there's like people who are really into like modifying their outfits or like looking a type of way that a partner wants them to, right? But that's who they are. They took the time to figure that out, right?
And I
And
will
that's what
say,
sexiness is. That's what charisma is. It's just being fucking comfortable in your own skin and
mhm,
not having these like neurological hang-ups about, oh, am I good enough? Or these narratives of, oh, nobody loves me. The shit that makes nobody want to be around you because anybody can smell desperation from a mile away. And it's not even a conscious thing. We are psychologically, subconsciously avoiding desperation all the time,
mhm.
right?
And also, I think, from a trans perspective too, you can be comfortable in your own body and still also experience dysphoria as well. So like in my instance, right? Like, I got my top surgery and all, and I am, I've dropped some weight, from I used to be much heavier. I dropped some weight, and I feel relatively comfortable in my body. Do I want to be more in shape? Yeah, like that's definitely for sure. But I feel relatively comfortable in my body, but I still experience a hell of a lot of bottom dysphoria. But I'm comfortable in
Mhm.
myself. I'm comfortable in the fact that if I want to explore bottom surgery options, I will, but I'm also comfortable in the fact that I don't have to, and that's my choice. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And it's
Mhm.
also one of those things too, and this is also probably a whole other conversation, right? Not even though you get the top surgery, you get the procedure or you get something done in order to alleviate a symptom of dysphoria, it doesn't always work. So like, it's that's always going to be like an ongoing kind of battle, but this idea of being comfortable in yourself in the fact that I can sit here on a live podcast to the fucking internet and talk about this and say these things and
Mhm.
talk about my body in this way because
So,
that's just my life.
if I may, I actually think confidence comes kind of from understanding your archetype and embodying it, right? Like, look at how much more confident I've become with myself since I've really embraced the bimbo, right?
Mm,
Mhm.
I'm not worried about shit. I will basically tell anybody anything I feel like at any moment if I feel it's relevant to do so or not going to cause harm or immoral, right? And old me from like 2 or 3 years ago would absolutely look at like the bimbo aesthetic and be like, oh, I love that, but I couldn't tell anybody that or be that. And like, that's a problem. That's up in my right? When I take all that pressure off and I be exactly the archetype that I see myself as, everything smooths up. And I even like to reduce it to archetypes because I think it's more fundamental at what is being hit at, right? Like gender is such a zoomed out category, you almost lose definition of what's happening, right?
yeah.
But if you understand your archetype, you're always going to granularly like have a granular intersection of identity, right? So for example, I adore being a bimbo. I like looking sexual. I like having really big titties. I like dressing skimpy and being blonde and having tattoos and piercings and like looking like that Y2K Christina girl. I like people seeing me like that and treating me like that girl. It isn't just like a turn on, it's like an emotional and spiritual appeal too,
Mm,
right? And you can try out something like say find out that you like being blonde but you're maybe not going to be a bimbo, right? You might be a prep girl, you might be a fucking goth girl, you might be like anything, right? So it's more relevant to understand your archetypes that you embody personally because that therein is the gold that we're all trying to mine. And wherever you have that archetype, it will land within some greater spectrum of gender and you'll just kind of fucking know. And if you don't know, then that'll be your knowing because sometimes not knowing and having no destination is arriving, right? That's like what agender people I'm sure feel like all the time.
Mhm.
care to weigh in
Hmm.
on that one, Scott?
I mean, yeah, right? I mean, I don't know. I don't think about gender.
I know it's so funny that way.
But you
Like,
think about your archetype, right?
oh yeah,
Well,
like your archetypes. Yeah, I don't know what are your
yeah,
archetypes so we
yeah,
can keep.
yeah. My archetypes, it's weird because it's funny. I at times worry that my archetypes aren't valid because
Hmm,
um they're a lot of them aren't human in shape, I guess. The way I see myself, the way I look at um I call myself an old hag, right? A hag in the woods.
Hmm.
It's funny
Um
because that is pretty much how I see you, and I mean that in the most highest
that's
regard.
right. I don't perceive I perceive myself as very eldritch, you know what I mean? Like, when I think about
Yeah.
it, it's very other,
Mm,
and it's funny because I always have had that. It's
Hmm.
always been there, Like, every time my mom would, I don't know, like, growing up I'm so sorry, it's a motorcycle, I apologize.
uh,
Um,
We couldn't even
every
hear it.
time Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I thought that was so loud. Every time my mom would be like, "Oh, well, you're a little boy," or she would say something to that effect, to be like, "Oh, okay," like, as if you're telling me,
like reminding
this
me.
thing, or
Yeah.
like, yeah, I'm like, oh, okay, am I okay? Like,
Uh,
is this um but my perception was always, I don't know, a fairy. You know what I mean? And I don't mean that in like a gay way. I just mean it in like a, I don't know. I just don't fit. You know, I'd rather photosynthesize. You know, like
Totally feel like that because I don't feel like I'm a human either. I feel like I'm a being from another planet that has a transcendental type of energy and nature, and that I'm not necessarily bound to a specific form, but I embody these archetypes of a human because. Can I tell you about a really weird experience I had the other day?
hmm,
yeah, of course.
I've been having depersonalization, but not in like a psychosomatic way, but in like a spiritual. So I've been
hmm,
using a meditation app a lot before I go to bed. And I had been playing VR for about a week straight, but I would also still use the meditation app, which is like HemiSync and the Monroe Institute, to like put myself in altered states while doing this. But what would start to happen is I would like identify with my VR body as like mine, and I could just start making actions like flawlessly. And then when I was in like this perspective, this body, my body would seem like it was an avatar, which is like the craziest fucking thing to experience if you've only ever been fully centered in one body in your life, right? But like I've noticed that like if you're playing VR for too long, text would appear slightly three-dimensional on a phone. Like my brain would like hallucinate curvature to it because that's what you see in VR, right? And
hmm,
so I was in the bathtub meditating about this, thinking very in depth about this. And I stopped and had a realization. While I was thinking, all of my attention was on my thought, but my body was doing all of the actions of being in the bathtub that it needed to. There was conditioner going in my hands. It was going through my hair. It was separating out all of my knots extremely carefully. And I didn't have to give a single degree of attention to it. Now,
it's
I
like
don't
that
think this
muscle
is some like
memory kind of thing.
here's what I really think it is. So the philosophy that I embody is that we have four bodies in ourselves, right? You have your physical body, you have your mental body, you have your emotional body, and you have your spiritual body. And I can explain how they all kind of really overlap very simply. Your physical body is like literally your muscle memory, like how you can do something without even thinking about it just because your body knows the weight and the position and like the movement, and it'll execute it flawlessly. You actually aren't even thinking psychologically about that process with your mind, right?
Hmm,
So there is actually a type of body intelligence that occupies and will do what it does, right?
hmm,
Then there's also like an innate mind intelligence, right? Like I've been going through a bit of regression stuff to like go through shit I've been going through in my childhood because I found something really deep in there and I've been pulling that shard out and it's excruciatingly long, right? But every time I would think about like certain childhood events that happened around me, it would position me in an area that made no sense. I'd be like
hmm,
out there on a sidewalk between two buildings at my school. And for the longest time, I didn't get it until like literally last night I realized it happened in the room that was blacked out behind the bushes where my subconscious kept putting me. Like my mind was trying to communicate to me that something had happened in this area. There's like no words to it. There's no anything. But anytime I would think about that, that's the image that came up. And then I realized it was in the direct proximity to what happened and where it happened. Right.
hmm,
So even though that memory was gapped out, my psychological processes would put me consciously by that spot to see it. So then I could observe my mental intelligence, like my subconscious, working in processes. And I realized your mental body is your collection of thoughts and experiences that's relevant to living this life. We would traditionally call it an ego, right? And that is actually capable of basically operating on its own, right? But then I
right.
was like,
Like
but
your
what am I?
autopilot.
What is Yes. And so then I was like really peeling these layers back. And I'm still in the bathtub, still meditating. My hands are still doing all this. And I'm like, so what's me? And at first I landed on this spirit because like your spirit is your essence that connects you life to life to life, right? Like all of your accumulated memories, your essences and all of that. But then I was stopping and thinking about that. All of those things come from my emotional state of being. So actually how I personally view it is me, the conscious aware being actually my heart center. And that gets filtered through that into the mental body, which is how I psychologically process and move, or sorry, into the spiritual body, which is how I process and move through it on a reality level, and then condense into a physical body with a mind. And when you're not in this body and you're moving on to another life, of course, you're not going to be sitting there with all of your body's memories and your muscle memory, like remembering the precise movements to do carving stuff, but your hand will know your craft, right? So there's like literally multiple layers of your essence that's like coached into this thing that is not necessarily just like one fixed point. And
Hmm.
so consciousness is this really fucking elusive thing, right? That's why I'm like bringing this up after Scott saying that they feel like they're an eldritch entity, because I don't necessarily feel super located in the positionality of being a human. I 100% occupy that space. My ego is a human one, and my body is a human one, and my mind operates as a human mind. But my spirit is not inherently human, and I don't make the mistake of identifying that with the body that I'm in. But you can tell that some people actually really do heavily identify with being a human. I don't think that's bad any more than not identifying with being a human is good. You know, I think they're just like states of being, and I don't think that ontologically sorting them into good or bad is actually useful or something worth doing, you know? So
Mhm.
yeah, that's kind of like my complicated take on how I feel about like the multi-layered nature of the spirit and our essences and like the multiple states of body intelligences and how they correspond with each other, you know?
It's actually that very reason why I've always been very sensitive to like the Therian community.
Hmm.
I know like a lot of people like to make fun of them because they tend to be autistic or spectrum or what have you, and those things. But like when I look back through historical folkloric and mythological texts, you can see that these concepts have remained in ecstatic tradition for thousands of years. It's not as if it's so far removed from our previous way of thinking ecstatically and spiritually. So like that's why I've never really grew to have this sort of critical and even bullying stance on them, because I'm like, this yeah, it's just another way of
Mhm.
sort of identifying. It's another experience, another way of sitting in it and being with it and how you're experiencing it. You know,
So
um, yeah,
quick interjection for anybody who doesn't know what a Therian is, because I had to look it up real quick. If you're older on the nomenclature, you might know them as what people would have called otherkin, although otherkin is a broader term that applies to anybody who doesn't necessarily identify as a human spirit, whereas Therian applies to people who feel like a non-human animal.
Yep.
yeah,
Is that correct?
yeah,
Yep.
yeah, yeah. And they're sort of they a lot of the time, when I was growing up and coming up into occultism and stuff, they were sort of a different community of people, right? Like their thing was like different than ours. But uh as I've read through folklore, it just felt a little, I don't know. I always felt like maybe we should listen a little bit more to them, just because, when you read about werewolf folklore, werewolves were just witches. Like if when you read the oldest lore about werewolves and people experiencing werewolf stuff, it was this sort of ecstatic bilocation where people would leave their bodies and they would have these primal experiences as sort of their fetch beast, right? Running outside of their bodies. And these are things that we've talked about in witch lore for a long time. So it feels cruel to sort of disregard these again, these psycho ecstatic experiences that people are.
I can kind of
But
speak
so
to
that's sort
that
of a
a little bit because one of my roommates is Therian. Um, we call him Durg. He is a dragon. I mean, like Durg is his nickname, but like, we refer to him as the dragon. If we gotta go wake him up, for something, if we're going out somewhere, we're like, oh, we gotta go wake the dragon, because he really is a fucking dragon. I'm not really sure how else to describe
Yeah.
that, but
yeah.
if you met him, if you interacted with him, if you saw his body language, the way that he interacts with the world around him, you'd be like, That's a fucking dragon. Like that is a dragon in a human
So
body.
Like that is that's yeah,
I have another
that's
really good example of this. Have you ever met those people who seem just like fucking aliens? Not like an actual alien species, but just like somebody who doesn't fit their body and like it looks almost like they're wearing a skin suit.
I've met maybe a couple people like that. Can't say like not in recent memory, I guess.
I, real quick. I need you both to remember what you were getting at. So keep in mind, because I just want to say something real quick
Mm.
to
I'm
anyone
done.
who
You say what you gotta say.
I was
I
mostly
think it's.
just agreeing with you, Scott, in that
Yes.
Therians,
Mhm.
and don't knock the Therians because I live with one. So if you have questions, ask
Right.
me.
I do want to say, and I think it's fascinating that I hope even the listeners notice that this entire conversation became about self-actualization.
Mm,
It became about um, it became and very naturally became about self-actualization, about self-reflection, about understanding identity and how that relates to your spiritual experience, your inner world and your outer world, your physical experience. And I think it's so fascinating that the original topic, which and it is inevitable for that topic to go here, um, that it is about knowing thyself, right? Who are you? Understanding your desires, and I mean desire in like a Crowley kind of way, right? And like desire in the sense of like your true will,
yeah,
right? um I know I'm quoting Crowley. Feel how you feel about it. It's all right. I'm not a big fan either, but he had a point there.
he is
um
what he is. I feel like
right.
every
He's just
occult,
a he's just a methed out version of Winston Churchill. Anyways.
yeah, everyone's
But he
contributed their
did have
piece
some
to
good
the bigger puzzle here. So,
but he did have some good points about true will and all that.
mm,
And I think and self-actualization, but so does modern psychology. And I think that yeah, I think it's fascinating like listening to us talk and even like my own thoughts, like having like the urge to bring up theanthropy and other kin and stuff like that, like that felt so organic. But
mm,
once again, when I'm listening to Sophia and you talk, Jay, is once again I started realizing like, oh my god, we're just talking about how important it is to get in touch with self,
yes,
and to not worry so much about who is the person I'm going to die as, right? More as who is the person I'm going to continuously create, you know what I mean, throughout my lifetime, right?
Oh,
Right, exactly.
I
So like
want to bring this
it's
back actually
fascinating.
when you're done your point because I have a cool thing to say. But please
No,
finish.
no, no, go ahead. I was just fascinated by that. Go ahead, please, go ahead.
Have either of you watched The Mighty Nine on Amazon, or have you like paid attention to the Critical Role campaign
Every
three?
episode, it's so good.
I haven't
Of
watched it
course you
yet.
could, Scott, because you recognize quality of character building. So without
Mhm.
spoiling anything, the whole theme of Critical Role season two, aka The Mighty Nine, is redemption. Okay? Without
Mm,
spoiling anything, a lot of the characters have been through some really shocking, and they don't just play it for laughs, they actually treat it with the severity that it deserves.
Mhm.
And to quote Molly Mock in a specific episode, the past
Mhm.
is in the past. You get to decide who you want to be today and every day going forward. And that just
true.
gives me fucking chills every time hearing it. And without too much spoilers, this is from a person who actually doesn't know what his fucking past is.
Mm.
Mhm.
It's kind of
He's
funny.
choosing to make the best of everything he has.
Yeah. Kind of bringing back into that topic, I finally went through and I deleted a lot of my old Facebook pictures. I used to not care that they existed, especially like my pre-transition ones, but I kind of had this moment where I was like, I don't really like I'm fully an adult now. I don't need teenage me like on the internet anymore. Teenage me is not on the internet. You know what I mean? Like I'm not engaging in that, kind of thing anymore. And I'm like, well, that's kind of like the beautiful thing of it. I can take it down if I want to. I have all these pictures saved. It's not really a huge deal for me, but like I don't know, it felt very freeing, and I think that maybe kind of comes back into like this idea of continuously reinventing yourself, like I know where I came from, but I can also choose what I want people to kind of know and see, you know what I mean? And I
Yeah,
think that
all of
also
this.
comes into
Mhm.
cultivating your identity is also what you're
Yeah,
allowing people to know about you, kind of thing.
yeah. You can get rid of, you can edit, you can I mean, I don't want people to lie. I don't think
Right.
lying exactly helps. That's not exactly I don't want people to think that that's what I'm saying, because then that's not really the truest, right? That's a sort of a but I think that, you don't have to give everything. Uh, you're allowed to have your secrets. You're allowed to have the things that make you you. It's just, you have to know who that is
Mm.
at best as you can. Um, I think that it's, as a species, as Homo sapien, we really
Hey,
enjoy
hold
feeling
on.
comfortable.
Mhm.
Sorry.
Oh, um, we really enjoy feeling comfortable and we don't like feeling uncomfy.
Mm.
But the problem that but I think that self-actualization happens in the depths and it happens in the depths of us. And I think that we can't, especially now, right now we need radical authenticity. We
Mm.
need people less afraid. I mean, you could be afraid, it's scary, but we need courageous people who are ready to um, dive deep and cry about it, get mad about it, and keep going
And keep living.
and
Yeah,
keep
like that's the
living.
thing is
Yeah, yeah,
keep living openly, keep living out, like
yeah,
as out and proud, as you can be.
yeah. Absolutely. Wow, I'm so sorry, you guys. I'm so fascinated by this conversation. I don't mean to psychoanalyze it or anything, but I'm just so interested the natural
Progression.
progression of this
Hmm.
conversation. I'm just but it makes a lot of sense when you think about, we're talking about energies here. We're talking about archetypes here. You know what I mean? And we're talking about how they relate to our identities. It's inevitable that it went here. I'm just really interested. And I really hope that other people can see it when they watch this episode. I really do.
I like this conversation because some feedback I was hearing from folks is like, sometimes we don't always get to touch on the queerness, right? We don't always get to touch on the big queer topics, right? Because sometimes we're exploring things, we're talking about current events, or sometimes we're just exploring a topic that's not necessarily queer focused. But I think everything here is kind of inherently queer because we are, right? So like
We are,
everything
yep,
is
yep.
coming through that sort of queer centric um lens, I guess you could say. But I do like when we do get opportunities like this to dig into these particular topics that are very I guess like they're very central to the queer experience, and I think I hope that, maybe someone who is, I don't know, maybe having questions about their own gender or identity, stumbles upon this and feels like they're among friends, having this kind of conversation. This stuff is not easy, and I think that's another thing I kind of just, for my own kind of closing thoughts on this sort of conversation, living your authentic self is easy and also not easy.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
not,
I see.
yeah, like it's not easy to start because you're often going against the status quo, right? Like you're doing something different out of the box. That's not easy to do. But once you do it and you continue to do it and you realize that, it it's the world hasn't caught on fire, you haven't broken anything, like that kind of thing. Like and you realize you're like, I feel stronger.
It doesn't mean it's burnt down.
But it's like I feel stronger, I feel better, I feel more confident in myself. Look, I used to not have any friends. Now I have 2 friends, 3 friends, 4 friends. I'm going to a club tonight. You will start to That will start to become your life as you authentically discover yourself and authentically live as yourself. So, my concluding thoughts on that kind of thing. Anyone else?
Oh man, I kind of feel like I've closed it out, but um, I think that I want you to be. I've probably said this before, but it's okay. I want you to be courageous, and I want you, everyone, my friends and listeners, and known and unknown to me. I want you to be courageous, and I want you to not fear you. You know what I mean? You don't there when you put your head in the fire of it all, this sort of that strange, mysterious inner transformative flame, it's scary to address all that stuff, right? All of your fears and the things that you maybe don't like about yourself or whatever it might be, the shadow or whatever. When you face it, you find liberation. Liberation does not come from running, it comes from walking through the fire. And you
Mm-hmm.
feel better when you do. Um, I just need you to be courageous, and I need you to know that while you're being courageous, you're not alone. That kind of courage is honorable, it's respectable, it shows the what is that the character your character as a person, and I respect that in ways that I don't even have words for. Um, just be courageous. You can do this. I promise. I always thought I couldn't, but I do it every day. We all, it's just you could do it. I promise.
So my closing thoughts are the setbacks are the ways, and actually what you put your energy towards is usually an indication of how you feel about something. Like I was writing a whole thing online earlier today talking about the psychological profiles of people who dedicate immense amounts of energy towards something that they hate, right? Like you'll see somebody who like say doesn't like a music artist and they'll put the equal amount of energy that somebody who's a deep fan of that artist into like hating that person, and they'll look up stuff about it, they'll learn about facts about that person's life, and they'll get like involved in the exact same ways that a fan would, but just in hating, right? And we do that with fucking everything that we don't necessarily have acceptance with, right? It's like if you're a straight person and you are not even slightly considering sucking dick, and you're very comfortable with being a straight person, right? No homosexual person will make you ever question your identity or be uncomfortable. Your aggression and emotional response to them is entirely indicative of unresolved emotions that you have, whichever way they go, right? So if you feel super, super, super strongly about something and hate it, and it's not like inherently a moral thing, I really want you to ask yourself why you're gravitating around that with such levels of obsession, right? It's like a lot of us pre transition, we might actually really be obsessed with like trans porn because that's one of the ways that like trans women get to see ourselves first and foremost more than anything, right? So that obsession often will evaporate. Like a lot of trans women are sluts, let's be real. But the obsession around like trans porn will like kind of fucking evaporate and just be replaced with like dating other trans women as a trans woman. You don't have that obsession about something that you're not because you're that thing, right? But you get those hangups from not being honest, from not exploring, from not doing, right? And you get that like homophobic knee jerk, I hate this reaction because it's doing something emotionally to you that you're not fully processing. And whatever that is could be something. I'm not going to call everybody who has that experience a closeted homosexual. Maybe like for example, maybe you're actually straight and your best friend came out as gay and you feel like it interrupted your relationship with him, and you feel a type of way now about not wanting to be seen around your best friend because he's gay when you're straight and you don't want to be associated with that. That can literally be your entire unprocessed emotional issue that causes you to lash out at other gay people, right? It doesn't necessarily mean the closet, but figure your shit out and process your emotions and figure out why you're hating something if it's not immoral. If it's something truly evil that warrants hating, then hating it is a good response. You should hate what's in the Jeffrey Epstein files. You should hate that Trump has mentioned more than 1 million times in the unredacted files. You should hate, massive trigger warning, that they were talking about literally fucking eating children, right? Under no circumstance should that give anything but fucking hate, because that is the correct response.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all situational, right? But if you feel a type of way about something, it's your essence of who you are trying to tell you to process and look at it, right? Maybe you feel a way about the Epstein files because you haven't looked into them and because you've deliberately turned a blind eye, and that makes you feel uncomfortable. But you're gonna know it by how you feel, and that's my mic drop.
Yeah. Yeah, this was a great, conversation that we had here today. Like I said earlier, I like when we get to dig into these sort of more
Heady.
abstract, heady, yeah, exactly, concepts. I think I would have done well in philosophy, except when I actually took a philosophy class, like it kind of sucked. So I was like, so,
I can explain actually why that sucks.
huh?
So too much
Just
philosophy is actually dedicated to like re-entrenching the hierarchy that we have of structure, because you're always forced to read the same philosophers, even though
yeah,
like a lot of theory has evolved since then, and it's less about actually training somebody to have like organic mind to develop philosophical systems and apply them as abstract
it's
concepts,
just
and it's
reading
more
the
about teaching
classics.
somebody. It's like teaching you the history of philosophy
Yeah, like
rather
it
than
sucked.
the process of doing it.
Yeah, I was
It's
like,
like if you
I
went to go
wanted to
study
like,
science, not so you could do science, but so that you could know what science had been done.
yeah,
That's how we treat it,
like
and that's the fucking crime.
I wanted the philosophy class to be like us talking about these sorts of topics. I thought that would be a philosophy class, but it was no, it was just reading like Plato and shit. And I was like, I could do that myself. I don't need to, have a whole class for that.
Literally. And also, I can do it without the fucking misrepresentation of Plato, because I know Plato was actually involved in the Orphic mystery cult, and I can get that fucking information if I don't have somebody who sanitized it shoving it down my fucking throat with a deliberate curriculum, right?
Exactly. Like they were all
Also,
occultists. Come
The
on, man.
fact that they call it Platonic
anyway,
materialist science to refer to the fact that it's just materialist is a fucking insult to the dude who is literally an occultist.
Yeah.
Sorry, off my
I
screen.
just real quick about that I think will interest a lot of people. A lot of those philosophers used to go around cleansing houses when people felt their houses were possessed by evil or angry spirits.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
And philosophers
Literally.
would go and they would go and cleanse the houses, just so you know.
Just just an
So
FYI, a
so
parting gift
stop
of
running my
knowledge.
man Plato's name through the mud like that.
Yeah. So yeah, another little tidbit of knowledge for you to go look up after this episode. But anyway, it was a great time here. You can support us on Ko-fi right now. I might be changing up some things with the website and whatnot, just trying to save money and make it smarter, make it work better. But for right now, you can support us over on Ko-fi. We do have a subscriber over there. That is Tink, and Tink always wants us to remember Free Palestine. So with
Free
that,
Palestine and
Free
stop
Palestine.
stop genocide, stop fucking all these fucking dangerous people from being in power and shit.
agreed. So with